KSBY is going in depth on the stories that matter to you. Tonight, we're trying to clear up any confusion about California's recall election in September. This is the first recall election for more than 7 million voters in California, as almost a third of voters were not eligible in 2003. That's when then Governor Gray Davis was recalled and replaced by Republican candidate Arnold Schwarzenegger. In 2 months, Californians will be going through the process once again. I took an in-depth look at what a local professor says is a strange, lengthy, and costly process.
We don't want to just have a coin toss determining who our next governor is. And that's basically what we're doing.
That's Cal Poly political science professor Michael Ladner. He says the rules of a California recall are unlike an ordinary election. Before we get to why, let's look at the process and how we got here. Organizers who disapprove of Governor Gavin Newsom's handling of issues, including the pandemic, initiated a petition to recall him in February 2020. By March 17, 2021, the official deadline for signatures, they collected more than 2 million.
Signatures are pretty low in order to get access to the ballot in California. And the idea is there that you want to have the process be open and then let the voters decide.
The Secretary of State verified more than 1.7 million signatures, beyond the nearly 1.5 million needed to get the recall measure on the ballot. A closer look at the numbers shows more than 25,000 valid signatures came from San Luis Obispo County and more than 16,000 from Santa Barbara County. The Secretary of State's final report in June shows only 43 people withdrew their signatures. Newsom signed a bill that passed both houses of state legislature, waiving the 30-day period to review the estimated costs for a special recall election, as long as lawmakers set aside money to pay for it.
It costs the state millions of dollars to have a recall.
How much? About $276 million of your tax dollars. On July 1st, the lieutenant governor announced voters will decide whether to keep or recall Newsom on September 14th of this year. Once voters finally get to see the ballot, Ladner says that's where the recall rules get tricky.
So here's where things get really strange and where California really demonstrates that it has one of the worst recall systems if you're going to have one. So there are 2 votes that each voters are going to have. One is yes or no on the recall, and then the other vote is who to vote for if the governor is recalled. The sitting governor is not allowed to be on the recall list.
That's because under California law, incumbents can't run to replace themselves. And it gets even more strange. The outcome doesn't always reflect the will of the majority. If more than 50% of voters said yes to recalling the current governor, the win goes to one of the candidates running to replace him.
So let's say it's a close recall and Newsom is recalled by 52 to 48 or something like that. You could easily have the person that ends up getting the most votes get 35% of the vote in a large field of candidates, and they become the next governor, even though more people wanted to keep Newsom.
Dozens have already announced or filed initial paperwork to run for governor, including Caitlyn Jenner, former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer, and businessman John Cox. The list also includes a pastor, a police officer turned broker, and an adult film star. In the 2003 recall, there were more than 130 candidates.
It's very easy to become a nominee. We have a very weak party structure, so there are going to be many independents.
If Newsom is recalled, the Secretary of State certifies the election, and the new governor will take the oath of office within 28 days. Whether or not that will happen, we'll find out in September. For now, it's all about the money. Unlike a regular election, Newsom and groups supporting the recall can raise an unlimited amount of cash. Here's a look at the top contributors supporting the recall. You may recognize some familiar names, including Orange County entrepreneur John Kruger and LA developer and Donald Trump mega donor Jeff Palmer. Newsom's top financial backers are made up of people or companies such as Netflix CEO Reed Hastings and the California Association of Realtors. Big money for both sides comes from wealthy enclaves, committees, and influential unions. County election officials will begin mailing ballots out for the recall election on August 16th. In the last century, there have been 55 attempts to recall an incumbent governor. 2003 was the only successful campaign.